So you just picked up that $1,500 RV. It's only got 64,000 miles on it, and you're thinking to yourself, oh man, did I get a good deal on this or what? Well, I gotta tell you, there's a lot of things that you need to pay attention to on these older RVs if you want to have an enjoyable vacation. Stick along with me. I'll show you some of the stuff you gotta pay attention to. Make sure it goes off without a hitch. Hello, I'm Ron with Ron's Classic RVs. When working on these things, there's a lot of systems that you need to have operating like they're supposed to get from point A to B without having to spend a bunch of money on the side of the road to get it fixed. I've been perusing around this thing, looking at it here for the last couple weeks, and I have compiled a heck of a list of things that need to be addressed. This list here, it's not all inclusive. There's other things that I could find that are probably bad on it. These are just the things to pay attention to. This camper's a 1980. It's a Chevy chassis on it. It's always important to know what your chassis is, so when you're trying to call around to get parts or something like that, you tell them what the chassis is. This being a Chevy P30 cutaway chassis is what this is. Actually, she's got 81,000 miles on it. It's up there a little more. Somebody used this thing back in the day. Most RVs you get, they got 35, 42,000 miles. And that'd be great if it's only 4 or 5 years old. But this thing is, 43 years old. So the mechanical condition of the engine, you'd hope that the rings are still in good shape and the bearings and all the gears and the transmission and stuff are working good. But I gotta tell you, the rubber components on it, they wear, they get hard, they get brittle, and then they pop. And once that happens, systems just start shutting down. So these are the things that a person's gotta tend to, make sure that they're up to par. So who am I and why do you want to listen to me? Well, I've been a mechanic since when I graduated from high school in 1986, and I've spent just an absolute many hours fixing stuff like this for people that didn't do proper maintenance on things. I've been a RV tech. I own my own RV repair business for the last 6 years. I used to do diesel repair before that. So you can take this to the bank. That what I'm going to share with you, it's the truth. It's the truth. Now, according to AAA statistics that are out there, the number one cause of breakdowns while you're traveling out on the road is cooling systems. That means you lose the coolant. The water falls out of the engine and then it overheats and then you're on the side of the road. And then a very close second, these two could be reversed. I'm not 100% sure. Tires. Tire failures. It's probably tire failures that are the biggest ones. Guys, they never want to put tires on. They think the tread looks good and let's shoot on down the road. Tires. If they're 5 years old or older, it's cheap and sure is to put some fresh ones on there than it is to roll on down the interstate going 100 miles an hour and blow one and end up in the ditch. And it's just bad all around. So I compiled this list just right here of cooling system things. This is what I'm going to do to my own personal RV. And you've heard that mechanics don't like working on their own stuff. Yeah, if you're just driving back and forth to work, which is 4 miles away, we'll drive the biggest pile there is. But I want to take the fam out in this. I want to go down around and over there and see that place over there. And I don't want to pay the high prices that you got to pay on the side when you're traveling to fix these. Because I know what shops do. They mark up the price over 100% on parts, usually. And then your labor, you're paying, 130, 160, 180 an hour for the labor. For a guy, they're only paying $18.50 an hour to starting. Now, I know there's guys out there that are making 30, 35 bucks. You've been there for a long time. But are you going to get that $35 an hour guy? Or are you going to get the $18 an hour guy? You never know, because they won't let you back in the shop. Oh, it's a secret. Let's look at this cooling system here and see what we got. These here vans, the engines, it's right, oh, almost, I got it. It's, okay, there. It's right here, part of it. This is part of it. They bury these things in there. They're hard to get to. But we're talking about cooling systems right now. This upper radiator hose, You can test them to see if they're good or not. This one, I don't know. I don't know how long it's been on. It's gonna go away. Upper radiator hose. See that guy? That's the lower radiator hose. This has got a number on it that I can see. That's okay. It's gonna be replaced too. It's going away. New upper, new lower radiator hose. Your heater core, the hoses that run to the heater core, they get hard. These are hard as a rock. They gotta be replaced. Your thermostat, which lives down at the bottom of this upper radiator hose down here, they might stick sometimes. They might not even be in there sometimes. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a 160-degree thermostat in this thing. I'm not going to drive it in the winter, so I don't need it to be up to 190. I want to keep it as cool as possible. Radiator caps, they fail. Just because it's physically there doesn't mean it's any good. It's got to hold pressure inside there. And they do have a tendency to get this part right under here will crack. This one doesn't look too bad. These can be tested. Ooh, nice and green. I like to see that. This radiator is for vans. It's for RV vans. It's a 4-core radiator. And it happens to have cooling built into the side over here for the engine oil. And then it's also got cooling built into the side over here for the automatic transmission over on this side. And if you think you can get a radiator for a 1980 Chevy van on the side of the road, you were sadly mistaken. I'm going to pull that radiator out, and we got one of them radiator shops in town that can do what they call a tune-up to it. They're gonna boil it out so there's no buildup on the inside of it. They are going to pressure test it, and they're going to solder up anything that might be bad. And I'm going to have myself a rebuilt radiator, and it's not that much money. Just to make sure nothing happens over there. Cooling. Blah. Your fan right here. It's got a clutch fan on it. You want to make sure that the clutch fan is doing its job. If there's a little bit of resistance on it, that's a good one. Make sure there's no end-to-end play. The water pump, it's right behind the fan. You can never tell when they're going to go out. When they're leaking, they'll leak coolant on the ground. And when they're not leaking, you can't tell if they're getting ready to leak coolant out. So after taking out the radiator and all this other stuff, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put a brand new water pump on it anyway. Cheap, guarantee my cooling system's going to be doing what it's supposed to. Also the belts that are running everything. You got your alternator belt, you got your water pump belt. They got to be replaced. They wear out. 5 years or older, replace them. Save yourself. Heater cores, they also have a tendency to go out. When I was eyeballing this here, I couldn't help but notice. Let me see if I can get this right there. Oh, you see that? Those are the heater core hoses. That means the heater core was leaking, and they just cut the line off and put the splice in it right there, and they bypassed it. You can do that on the side of the road if you want to be broken down, tend into that, but it's going to be a lot easier to put a heater core in right here than it is on the side of the road. These are just some of the things you got to put up with when you buy an old RV that needs just a little bit of love. These are maintenance items that should be taken care of as time goes by. Do them now is what I'm trying to say. Do them when you're at your house and the auto parts store is delivering to your place because you buy a lot of stuff from them. Knock it out right now. Don't do it on the side of the road. 50 miles to bring a water pump out to you. They charge for that kind of stuff. Ugh. Tires. Very, very important. Fresh tires. You gotta have, these ones here look really, really nice. But it's got a DOT date code on it right here. I'll look, come over here, I'll show you. I'll show you what I'm talking about. And you'll see why these beautiful, brand new looking tires are junk and they need to be gone. They gotta go away. We need brand new ones. Here you can see the fuzzies on the sidewalls. I mean, they are, you just can't even, I can't even get a shot at the tread. There. See, I mean, the guy put these things on and then he abandoned it. So even though these are brand new tires, here's the DOT date code. DOT, this number here is the factory out in China that probably made it. And some other inventory stuff. But right there, this number says 2515. That means these were made in the 25th week of 2015. Now that it's 2023, that's more than 5 years. So these tires shot. What ends up happening is that the rubber compound gets hard, it gets brittle, and then they start to do what's called dry rotting. And in the sidewalls, they have to flex quite a bit. And if they're flexing and they're dry, they heat up and then they blow out. Let me see if I can find some dry rot for you. Right there is a prime example of dry rot, where the tire and the tread are already starting to separate. These are the same, we're just on the rear right now. So, yep, there's one right there. This is just an accident waiting to happen. Bad, bad news. When you get new tires put on, tell the tire shop that you want dually extensions. See, there's a valve core hanging out right in there, and you can't hardly get to it. And there should be another one. What, they didn't even line these ones up? Them bastards. Where's the other one at? Well, they're not timed right. That inside, oh, there he is. We can't even see in there. If you can't get to your valve stems, you can't check them for tire pressure. Every time you go on a trip, you need to check your tire pressure. You need to keep an eye on it on the road. That's another reason why tires fail all the time, is because they're underinflated, and then they overheat and they blow. Flap, 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 flap. And then all this, it's gone. It's not around anymore. Now that we got new rubber on the things, when we're in there, we're going to take a look at the brakes. The brake shoes, this has got disc on the front and it's got drums in the back. The brake doesn't? Oh, sure, I can see that. The brake shoes are serviceable. We're going to go ahead and reuse those. If the rotor's straight, we're going to go ahead and reuse that. If it needs to be turned, turn it. Turn your old ones. Don't buy new ones, because the new ones are such cheap junk metal from China that they get hot and they warp. And then when you step on the brakes, your steering wheel will do this. It's because they're warped. Try to fix your old ones. The old OEM ones are a lot better. And I'm going to put new calipers on the front, because they work until they don't. And the rubber in the O-rings on the calipers, it can be brittle, and I don't want to put brakes on the side of the road. So this girl's going to get 2 calipers up front. We're going to put wheel cylinders in the back when we're in there inspecting them. I'm right there. We're going to go ahead and do it. Another thing I'm going to do, these right here, the rubber brake lines. There's 2 in the front, 1 for each side, and there's 1 in the back. And we are going to replace these because they get brittle and they crack, and you just don't know what you have. Under the old rear differential here, here's your single rubber brake line that goes down to supply both your rear tires with the brake juices. Shocks. Important that they are in serviceable condition. Usually when they fail, underneath here will be covered in oil, and then dirt will be stuck to it, so it'll be filthy under here. Another way you can check it is to jump up and down on the bumper, jump off, and then make sure that the body isn't bouncing up and down still. Usher, the old master cylinder right here. Oh man, everybody's out riding today. Golly. Brake fluid, on old vehicles, brake fluid is called hygroscopic, which means the fluid itself has the ability to absorb water into it. And that's why your brake lines will rust and break, the metal ones. Calipers seize up, master cylinders seize up, lots of things. That's why these are always sealed. They're sealed shut. They always tell you to use brake fluid from a completely sealed container. These brakes, they got something wrong, because as soon as you blow on the brake pedal, you are going through the windshield. I'm right here. It's that bolt and then a new freshie, yes. This here is called a Hydro Boost brake system. Instead of using vacuum from the engine to assist in power braking efforts, this one uses hydraulic fluid from the power steering pump hidden down under in there somewhere. Well, I mean, I'm almost up to my elbow. Okay, there it is. So these high pressure lines, this one right here, cheap insurance, get those repaired. You can take them to a hose and rubber shop and put new rubber on them, or just buy new ones. Replace the low pressure lines so your power steering, you don't blow on the side of the road. Another thing to pay attention is your front wheel bearings. they're greased, they're packed in grease, and they need to be serviced every now and then. The owner's manual will even tell you what the service schedule is. I don't know, 20,000 miles, 15? I've never owned a vehicle long enough to have to do it twice. So when the wheels are off and you're in there and you're doing the brakes, get into the wheel seals, get into the wheel bearings, clean them, pack them, new seals. All of these components, these spinny ones, they all got to be serviced so I know I can have a good trip down the road. You wouldn't believe how many wheel bearing failure calls I get. Guys, especially with trailers, will never bother looking at their wheel bearings. It's sad, and it's easy work, you know, for guys that know how to do it, and it's easy to do it at the house too, instead of on the side of the road. The wheel bearings on the back of these things, and these motorhomes, all of them, they're oiled from the differential fluid. It goes down and oils up the bearings in there. Now that we've gone through the ways to make sure your engine stays cool, make sure your tires don't blow, make sure you can stop the outfit while you're ripping down the road, loaded up with all them coolers full of beer, let's focus on what it takes to get it running, get it to start moving. Now that we're safe, you know, we can safely kind of move around, let's focus on that. This little sweetheart here's got the old Chevy 400 small block in it. 3-speed automatic transmission. Now, while this was abandoned in a field somewhere, somebody decided to come in and steal the old thermoquad off of it. And then they threw the air cleaner away and they did stuff to it. So this one here, the fuel system's compromised. It does run, but there's a lot of things the guy's got to do to the fuel system, make sure that she's running like she's supposed to. All these rubber lines right here, they get hard and brittle like you can't believe if it sits for any amount of time. Well, this isn't even installed in there. Oh, man. Replace all your fuel lines, starting from the fuel tank coming forward. It's also important to drain all the old fuel out of your fuel tank. Fuel nowadays goes bad so dang fast. Drain it out. Get a pump. Do what you got to do. Drain it out. Dispose of it responsibly. And then you might want to even get a borescope and look on the inside of the tank, make sure it's not all rusted up. Because if it sits for 5-10 years, it will wipe out that fuel tank. And you know what? You can't just buy replacement fuel tanks for RVs. No, they are a very special one-off. You need to take it down, get it boiled out somewhere. There's chemicals available that you can do it yourself, reseal them by pouring stuff on the inside. Fuel tanks, yep. Interestingly enough, the only part of the engine I can see is the fuel pump. I would throw a new one of these on, but that one obviously looks like it's been replaced at some time. And since it's right out there in the open, I'm probably gonna run that one. But all the fuel lines going to it, they're gonna get freshened up. This here's the carburetor. This is what they use before fuel injection. These, if they sit for a long time, they will get, the gaskets will get hard, the needle and seat will stick, and it'll cause it to flood out when you try to start it, or it'll stick closed or stick open, so you can't get any fuel in it. Accelerator pumps go out on them. Very important to focus on all the things that make fuel happen. It's very mechanical, and a lot of things can go wrong. So if you're trying to fire up an old RV, take the carburetor off, rebuild it. If you can't rebuild it, hire somebody to rebuild it. Get along with that. Ignition system. The distributor right here. This looks like it's got, this isn't factory at all. The wires look like they've been new at some time, but the spark plugs, it's super hard to tell when they're in there. I think one of the reasons why I found this thing to be kind of shot, if you look at that, that's a cracked exhaust manifold right there. And that will burn. The heat that comes out of that can light the wires on fire and melt stuff, kind of like what went on right here. Start the side of the doghouse on fire. So these manifolds need to be replaced. One's bad, they're both bad. Just gonna do it. Not gonna mess around with them. Nope. Tune up the engine, fresh air filters, fuel filters, oil filters, change of oil, the transmission, drop the pan, change the filter in it. Yeah, they've got filters inside of them. Some fresh oil in there. Drain the rear differential. Fill it back up with some 90 weight. All new fresh juices. That helps the longevity. Maintenance issues that they just got to be knocked out. And then once you do this, and it takes you anywhere between a week and a month, depending on your time and your financial status, then you know that you can reliably cruise this thing down the road and it's not going to give you any problems. Yeah, I like no problems. Makes me happy. So just a quick recap here with my punch list. Cooling system and the item I highlighted, the ones that I talked about in the video. They're not done yet. Cooling system, things that's got to be checked. The fuel system and the air system, all the things that I've noticed by casting my peepers on it. Going to the electrical and the ignition system. We had a dead battery in it. We got to figure out, is it a bad battery or is there a voltage leak on it? I got to check that. The ignition switch, somebody, they didn't have the keys to it. We had to replace the ignition switch. Gauges don't work. Check the alternator output. Steering and suspension, needs a lube job. Lube up the grease zerks, check the U-joints, check the suspension components. Just so much stuff. Brakes, super important for brakes. Make sure we got the brake lights. So if you're 3 deep in the adult beverages and the cop pulls you over because you got a brake light out, you don't want to go to the who's cow. Engine things to do, we're going to perform a compression test to it. Check out the engine to see if it's, it doesn't smoke when you fire it up. And I just want to know the strength of our engine there. Clean up all the mouse debris. Blocky. And things to do to the body on the outside so it looks good. So much things to do before we can go camping with it. I can't even bar hop with the thing yet. Shoot. So, showed these guys to you. My list, my punch list. Things to keep working on. Well, I hope this showed you some of the things that a person's got to look at when you pick up them $1,500 RVs. There's a lot of systems, a lot of maintenance, a lot of repairs that need to take place to them. That's why they end up only costing $1,500. But they're worth it in the end. You really know what you got when you're done. I'm Ron with Ron's Classic RVs. Thanks so much for watching.